can teachers do to extend the writing and analysis skills of their students in English language? At King Edward VI School in Bury St Edmunds, Suffolk, Barbara Blyman, a specialist advisory teacher from the English and Media Centre, and Head of English Lindsay Gumbrell, reflect on a lesson about formality and language choices. The Year 9 class is taught by Natalie Punchard.
Alice. Simon.
Today I'm planning to teach a lesson to Year 9 students, thinking particularly about informality and formality of language. We're thinking about standard English and non-standard English, and yesterday we did some work on that and sort of groundwork, thinking about the technical terms, did a little bit of analysis, and I hope to develop that today, take that forward.
I'd like you to just jot down our 2 lesson objectives for today, okay? So I'll read them to you. So the first one, to understand how the formality of a text is affected by the language choices that are made. And the second objective is to know the appropriate context in which to use these language features. What kinds of situations were there that we would use that standard formal language? Start off, Alice.
If you're writing to the Queen.
Good, okay, excellent example.
If you're going for a job interview or if you're talking to the boss, sort of thing that broadsheets would use in their newspapers.
Good.
Essays.
Essays, yeah. Sometimes people absolutely, they forget that they're texting away and they're writing their essay at the same time, and they actually get the two kind of muddled up. So we need to think really carefully about that. Good, let's come back to this next term then. What was informal then? What kinds of situations would we use that informal language?
It's where non-standard English is used, like when you talk more relaxed. It doesn't sound so imposing.
When you're writing in your diary.
Good.
In a text message to your friend.
You use it if you're emailing your friends, then you use it in an email.
MSN.
MSN, yeah, good.
I really like the way that she's going to be focusing on the detail of close work on language, but actually her starting point is quite a broad issue. She's sort of talking about informal and formal.
I think a lot of the way that we approach texts now shows the impact of the literacy hour work, the work that's done on text and sentence and word level. I think it's had a very positive spin-off in the classroom, and because it is important that students are engaged immediately by the big picture, and then you lead them through into the more particular analysis of language, which they'll do later on in the lesson.
I'm going to start off with actually looking at a variety of different texts, and they've got to put them in kind of order of formality, get them up on their feet moving around, which they enjoy doing.
There's pig out on pizza and stuff.
Yeah, and loads of what are they called?
Like exclamation marks.
Right, let's get up, let's move.
She's saying things like she's got bundles of cash.
All right, turn around, show me the text. So I can see what we've got. Okay, let's deal with the extremes first of all. Why did you choose to stand there?
It's a simple text message, it's going to be fast, easier, and you have a lot more time without using standard English.
Good.
Because it takes longer and you have to pay more.
We chose to stand here because we thought that it's a newspaper and it's going out to people that you don't know, so you've got to keep it formal.
And they wouldn't use slang to people that you don't know. And
good.
Can't really
it's on the front
rude.
page, so setting example.
Okay, let's deal with one that's in the middle.
It's a letter to Vicky's grandma and granddad about her birthday present they gave to her.
Excellent. Okay, why did you choose to stand there?
Because it's not informal, but then it's not formal as well. It's just in the middle. There's some slang, but then some of it's wrote properly.
What about the letter to the parents?
It says things like yours faithfully, and it's like standard English, so it uses all the common grammar and spelling rules.
Good, absolutely. What about, there's 2 emails that I want to look at. What can we say about this email?
It's got a load of emoticons, little pictures in it. And
yeah.
Well, this is an email from the boss of a company to one of his employees about a meeting. So it's quite formal because it's the boss of a company. Excellent. And he says things like, please ensure you bring your portfolio. And
good, excellent, okay.
I love that continuum line activity.
Works well, doesn't
It works really, really well. Partly because it's the physical thing of them getting up and standing up, but also they are having to kind of read closely, look at each of the texts, compare the texts with each other.
Yes.
Make
all that
decisions,
negotiation going on.
Exactly, negotiating,
Yeah.
and then putting themselves somewhere on that line.
They're picking up all sorts of clues, in fact, aren't they, about in how to determine the level.
It's also a really investigative lesson, isn't it? Which is, in terms of teaching about language, teaching grammar, seems to me the way to go.
We're going to move on now. All right, we're actually going to deal with the email, which was fairly chatty, that we said was right down here on the informal side. We're going to actually be thinking about analysing the language used in the email. The way in which you're going to do it is you're going to set it out in a table format. Now, there are 3 ways you can do this.
It's a mixed ability class, so they're actually there's kind of a low level sheet where they're actually only just cutting and sticking, matching the examples and the analysis. The second level is they're given the features that I'm expecting them to find, then they're actually going to look for the examples and do the analysis themselves. And then the final thing is they actually find the high ability students are actually going to look for the features themselves, identify the features themselves using the vocabulary that we did yesterday.
Talk about it with your neighbour, don't need to be just silent.
I think you have to use that because she wants to make her point really clear. Yeah, they've missed the G off nothing. Look, send me a text. TXT.
Yeah.
2 more minutes.
No use of capital letters, that's all the way through.
Yeah.
What I want you to do is to look down your list, and I would like you to pick 2 that you think show that this is a really informal email.
Overuse of punctuation.
Using number homophones and short words like bout.
No use of capital letters.
Also missing out vowels in words.
Super. Okay, excellent.
It's really well judged, that, isn't it, in terms of offering that range of different levels at which students can pitch in.
A lot of us have become very accustomed to delivering lessons at 3 levels, but maintaining the overall focus of the lesson, of course, and students all then feel that they've got something very valuable to give.
At this point now, they really are looking very, very closely at the detail of language. But I think, as we said earlier, it's kind of from a broader perspective.
They've got the taster, haven't they, in the continuum line, of a whole range of different ways that informal and formal language can be used. And then to be able to sort of cut it up or write about it or dissect it, then you've got that tremendous engagement there at all levels in the class.
We're going to move then on to thinking a little bit about actually employing that in our writing, and the students hopefully will be able to kind of transfer those skills from the analysis.
What we're going to think about is actually employing language features in our own writing to make the text we've looked at either more formal, if it's very informal, or less formal, if it's a very formal text. So, my formal text was this first of all. Okay, this is what I started off with. Dear parent, I regret to inform you that your son did not complete his English coursework. He has missed 3 deadlines. Unless your son completes his English coursework by Friday, he will be placed in faculty detentions every lunchtime until he hands the work in. If you have any further questions regarding this matter, please do not hesitate to contact me. Right, transform that now into a very informal message. So I've said, hi mate, your son didn't do his English homework. He must do it tonight or else. Text back if you have any questions or cues. What I want you to do with the text that you have got, whether it's the newsletter, newspaper article, is to make that into either a very formal text, if your text is informal to start with, or the other way around. Alright, I'm going to give you about 15 minutes or so to do this task.
Hi.
I put it in hey, H-A-Y.
How do thanks for. If you are not busy, text me back. Should we do something a bit? If you say if you're free, it sounds a bit
Please
informal.
reply if you are available. You put 9 p.m. and 9 o'clock.
I keep doing punctuation. It's really irritating.
Her choice of text messaging, I think that's just great, isn't it? Because it's kind of taking a a text from everyday use, a text that they will be really interested in, and it's drawing on their interest and immediate kind of expertise, if you like, to think about language.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's very rare nowadays that students haven't got a mobile phone, and although they're not supposed to use it in class, hey, fantastic if they can actually use the language that is becoming second nature to them now.
How are we doing? Nearly there with this.
And then to kind of round it all off and to look back on the objectives, we're actually going to then pin them up around the room. They're going to have a look at each other's texts and see what works, what doesn't work, as appropriateness of a text, and thinking about the language specifically.
If we come back to mine, do we think that's appropriate? No. Okay. Why not though? Can we say why?
It's not very serious, and it's a serious matter.
I think that if I was that boy's parent, I wouldn't be happy because the teacher not really taking it seriously, and I'd be quite cross.
Again, it says, "Hi, mate." Well, the parent would be put off by that because they don't really know who the teacher is.
Yeah.
All the words are like shortened, so they probably wouldn't like understand it.
Yeah. Good. So what I would like you to do for each of the texts is to go around picking out examples of formal language and informal language that meet our first objective, and then decide whether you think the text is the language is appropriate or inappropriate, and try and say why. Okay, let's go. Your feet.
If I said that to my grandparents, they would flip.
Okay, back to these learning objectives. Right on the floor. Okay. Look at your sheet that you've just filled in. You should see that you have understood these two things. So, first of all, understand how the formality of a text is affected by the language choices that are made. What kinds of things were you analysing earlier in the lesson? Things that you've spotted now that tell us the text is either formal or informal?
Standard English.
What things tell us that it's informal?
Using like emoticons and letter homophones and number homophones.
Excellent, okay, good technical vocabulary there. So we know that the formality is affected by these choices of language that we make, okay? What about the appropriate context? What can we say about that? Yeah.
It really depends who you're writing to or who its audience is.
Excellent, okay. Who you're writing to, the audience of your text. Just put your hands up if you think your grandparents would understand that message. Okay, would they understand that text message? A few, not very many. Okay, you must have very trendy grandparents.
I thought the way she got the students to write on sugar paper and then put it up on the wall was a really good strategy. I mean, it's so low tech,
yes.
and simple, but really, really good, because they could then display all of the texts on the wall and they could read each other's. And it was a really nice way of kind of tying everything in together at the end of the lesson.
They're living in this time of huge language change, and to get them enthused and say, well, wow, we're at the forefront of all of this, it's a really successful way of approaching language.
That sounds a bit. Yeah. No, the homework is for after half term. Bye.